The massive council chamber fell silent as the holographic display flickered to life. Hundreds of alien representatives leaned forward in their seats, eager to see the first images of the newly discovered spacefaring race. The room was filled with beings of all shapes and sizes, from the tall, four-armed builders to the floating gas forms of the Cloud People. Admiral Rex stood at the center platform, his gray scales gleaming under the bright lights. He tapped a button, and the image zoomed in on a small fleet of ships moving through space. These vessels belong to a species calling themselves humans, Rex announced, his voice carrying a hint of amusement. As you can see, their ships are rather small. Laughter rippled through the chamber. The ships in the display were indeed tiny, barely a third the size of standard council vessels. Their sleek, angular designs looked strange compared to the massive, dome-shaped ships the council races preferred. Surely this must be some mistake, called out one of the council members. No spacefaring race would build ships so small. Perhaps these are scout vessels. Rex shook his head, grinning. No, council member. These are their main battleships. Our scans confirm it. More laughter filled the room. The council chairman raised a hand for silence. Have we made contact with these humans? Yes, Chairman. They've agreed to send a representative for a diplomatic meeting. They should be arriving shortly. As if on cue, the chamber doors slid open. A single human walked in, dressed in a simple blue uniform with golden trim. Ambassador James Walker moved with quiet confidence, seemingly unbothered by the towering aliens around him. "Welcome to the Galactic Council," the chairman said, trying to hide his amusement at the human's small stature. "We trust your journey was comfortable in your tiny vessel." Several council members snickered. Walker smiled politely. "Thank you, Chairman. Our ships may be small, but they serve our needs perfectly well." Rex stepped forward, looking down at Walker. "Tell me, Ambassador, how does your species expect to defend itself in space with such limited ships? The dangers out here are very real." "We manage, Admiral," Walker replied calmly. "Size isn't everything, as the saying goes on Earth. Perhaps on your world," Rex said. "But out here, power matters. Your ships wouldn't last 5 minutes against a standard council battle group." Walker's smile didn't waver, but his eyes hardened slightly. "Is that a threat, Admiral?" "Of course not," the chairman cut in smoothly. "The Admiral is merely concerned for your safety. The Council protects younger races until they're ready to defend themselves properly." "That's very kind," Walker said, "but we can handle our own defense. We've been doing so for quite some time." Rex laughed openly now. "With those toys, Ambassador, I've seen private yachts bigger than your largest vessel." Walker turned to face the entire council, his voice carrying clearly through the chamber. "I understand your amusement. Truly, I do. But I must warn you. Judging by size alone is a dangerous mistake, one humanity learned to avoid long ago." "Is that a threat, tiny human?" Rex growled. "Not at all, Admiral. Simply a lesson from Earth's history. There was once a small man named Alexander who built a tiny army. Everyone laughed at him too, until his small force conquered most of the known world." Walker smiled again. "But I'm sure that's just a quaint human story that wouldn't interest the council." The chairman waved his hand dismissively. Yes, very entertaining. Now about your application for council membership." "Actually," Walker interrupted politely, "I believe we'll withdraw that application for now. It seems we have some growing to do before we meet council standards." He bowed slightly and turned to leave. At the door, he paused and looked back. "Oh, and Admiral, about our ships, there's another saying on Earth. Good things come in small packages." The council chamber erupted in laughter again as the human departed. Only the chairman noticed that Admiral Rex had stopped laughing. His eyes narrowed as he studied the retreating form of Ambassador Walker. In his small ship heading back to Earth, Walker sent a simple message. KACOMMEGA. They took the bait, exactly as predicted. The response came quickly. Understood. Operation Pocket Knife is now active. Walker leaned back in his chair, watching the stars streak by. The Council would learn soon enough why humans built small ships. But by then, it would be far too late. 3 months after the Council meeting, things began to change. At first, it was small incidents. A Council trading ship would stray too close to a human mining station. A border patrol would accidentally lock weapons on human vessels. Little things, but they added up. Admiral Rex sat in his command chair, watching the reports flow in. Another human colony, you say? Yes, sir, his aide reported. They're setting up mining operations on the moon of planet B435. It's technically outside Council space, but very close to our borders. Rex smiled. The humans were spreading fast, but their tiny ships still made him laugh. Each time he saw them on scanner screens, they looked like toys compared to his mighty vessels. Send a battle group to patrol that sector, he ordered. Remind these humans who really owns this part of space. Meanwhile, on the human colony of New Mars, things were getting worse. Captain Mike Rogers watched from the control tower as another damaged cargo ship limped into port. Its hull was scarred with blast marks, too precise to be accidents. Third attack this week, his second-in-command said. Pirates again. Funny how they never seem to attack Council ships, isn't it? Rogers nodded grimly. Funny indeed. Almost like someone's encouraging them to target us. He picked up his comm unit and sent another report to Earth Command. Back on Earth, the military command center was buzzing with activity. General Lisa Hart stood before a massive screen showing dozens of red dots, each one a reported incident. The Council thinks they're being clever, she said to the assembled officers. Border incidents, pirate attacks, accidental weapons locks. They're testing us, seeing how we'll react. And how do we react? Someone asked. Hart smiled. It wasn't a pleasant smile. We do exactly what they expect. We act weak. We send diplomatic protests. We pull our ships back. Let them think their plan is working. One of the younger officers stood up. But we're letting them hurt our people. Those pirate attacks are getting worse. The crews knew the risks when they volunteered, Hart replied firmly. Every damaged ship, every failed colony attempt, it's all part of Operation Pocket Knife. The screen behind her changed, showing the latest satellite images. Council battleships, massive and imposing, were moving closer to human space every day. They weren't even trying to hide anymore. They're preparing for war, Hart continued. They think we're easy prey, that our small ships and careful diplomacy mean we're weak. She pressed a button, and the screen showed something new, detailed scans of Council ships. Every time they attack us, we learn more. Their weapons, their shields, their tactics, we record everything. And while they laugh at our tiny ships, she pressed another button. Deep underground, beneath every human colony and station, hidden hangars hummed with activity. Thousands of ships, even smaller than the ones the Council had seen, were waiting. Each one packed with technology that would make the Council's best engineers weep with envy. Let them think we're weak, Hart said. Let them start their war. Admiral Rex wants to teach humanity a lesson. Fine, but he's about to learn that humans are very, very good at teaching lessons of our own. In space, another Council battle group moved into position near a human mining colony. The massive ships dwarfed the few human vessels in the area. The Council commander opened a channel. You have 24 hours to evacuate this sector, he announced smugly. This region now belongs to the Council. The human ships started their engines, but instead of running away, they began a strange formation. The Council commander laughed. What difference did it make how these tiny ships arranged themselves? He wasn't laughing when his sensors picked up the energy readings, but by then, it was already too late. The first battle of the coming war was about to begin. And humanity's real fleet was finally ready to show the galaxy why size didn't matter, not when you had human ingenuity on your side. Deep in Council space, Ambassador Walker received a simple message. Operation Pocket Knife is now in final phase. Green light for Contingency Alpha. The war was about to begin, and only one side was truly prepared for what was coming. The Council battle group moved toward the human mining colony like a pack of hungry wolves. 5 massive ships, each one gleaming under the distant starlight. Their commander, Captain Ray, stood proudly on his bridge. "Look at those pathetic human vessels," he sneered, pointing at the 3 small ships defending the colony. "They're not even running away. Perhaps they're too afraid to move." His crew laughed. The human ships were so small that they barely showed up on the main screen. Even the mining colony's defense stations looked weak and fragile compared to Council technology. "Open a channel," Ray ordered. "Let's give them one last chance to surrender." The largest human ship responded. Its captain, Anna Stone, appeared on the screen. She looked calm, almost bored. "This is your final warning," Ray announced. "Leave this sector or be destroyed. Your tiny ships are no match for." "Fire control, execute pattern Delta," Stone interrupted calmly. Then she cut the transmission. Ray blinked in surprise. Did they just hang up on us? And what's pattern Del? His question was cut short as all 3 human ships suddenly moved. Ray's jaw dropped. The movement was impossible. The small vessels spun and twisted through space like dancers, moving faster than anything he'd ever seen. "Sir, I can't get a weapons lock," his gunner shouted. "They're moving too fast." Ray growled in frustration. "They're just using fancy tricks. Fire a spread pattern. They can't dodge everything." The Council ships opened fire. Space lit up with energy beams and plasma bolts. But the human ships slipped through the barrage like ghosts. Not a single shot connected. "Impossible," Ray whispered. Then his eyes widened as the human ships changed direction. They were attacking. "Shields up," he ordered. "Show these humans what real warships can." The first hit rocked his ship so hard he fell from his chair. Warning alarms screamed across the bridge. "Damage report." "Sir, they just cut through our shields like they weren't even there." Another hit. Then another. The human ships moved in perfect coordination, striking from angles that should have been impossible. Their weapons weren't just powerful. They seemed to know exactly where to hit for maximum damage. "How?" Ray demanded. "How are they doing this?" On her bridge, Captain Stone watched the battle through her neural interface. The AI combat systems fed data directly to her mind, showing her exactly where each Council ship was vulnerable. Her crew, just 3 people per ship, worked with their computer systems in perfect harmony. "Target their primary power cores," she ordered. "Let's show them why humans build small ships." The Council battle group tried to regroup, but it was useless. Their big ships were too slow, too clumsy. They'd spent centuries building bigger and bigger vessels, thinking size meant power. They'd never imagined anyone would make ships small on purpose. "Their weapons can't track us," Stone told her crew. "Too much mass in their targeting systems. That's the problem with big ships. They're built to fight other big ships." Another Council vessel erupted in flames. Not destroyed. Stone was under orders to disable, not destroy. Earth wanted prisoners and intact ships to study. "Sir," Ray's tactical officer screamed. 3 more human ships just appeared from behind the moon. Ray stared in horror as his mighty battle group was torn apart by vessels he could barely see on his screens. His ship's weapons were useless. Designed to hit large targets, they couldn't track the nimble human vessels. "Pull back," he ordered. "Full retreat." But it was too late. The human ships had already disabled their engines. Ray watched helplessly as his command fell apart around him. On the colony below, miners gathered at viewing windows to watch the battle. Many of them smiled, knowing what was coming. They'd been waiting months for this moment. Send word to Earth Command. Stone ordered as the last Council ship went dark. Tell them Phase 1 is complete. The Council's superior ships have been defeated. And tell them, she smiled, tell them the Council's reaction to our real technology was exactly what we expected. The message was sent, and across human space, thousands of hidden ships began powering up. The real war was about to begin, and humanity was done pretending to be weak. Admiral Rex paced in his command center, his face dark with rage. The reports from Captain Ray's defeated battle group had shaken the entire Council. 5 of their best ships, disabled by 3 tiny human vessels. It was impossible. It was unthinkable. It was humiliating. Enough games, he growled. Prepare the invasion fleet. We'll crush these humans with overwhelming force. The Council's mighty armada gathered at the border of human space. 300 massive warships, the largest fleet assembled in a century. Their huge forms blocked out the stars, creating an artificial eclipse visible from nearby planets. Admiral Tom Wright watched them from his command ship, the David. His vessel was so small that the Council's scanners probably thought it was just space debris. That was exactly what he wanted them to think. All ships report ready, sir, his communications officer said. The Council fleet is moving into position. Wright nodded. Send the signal. Operation Pocket Knife is now in full effect. Deep in space, hidden behind moons, asteroids, and artificial sensor shadows, the real human fleet waited. Each ship was smaller than even the ones the Council had seen before. But size didn't matter when you didn't need crew quarters, or life support, or any of the other things that made Council ships so huge. Let them come, Wright said softly. Let them see what they've actually started. The Council fleet moved forward like a tidal wave of metal and energy. Admiral Rex stood on his massive flagship, grinning as his ships entered human space. See how they hide, he announced to his bridge crew. These humans finally understand their place in the galaxy. Their lucky victory against Ray's ships means nothing against this much firepower. Then his tactical officer screamed, Sir, new contacts. Hundreds of them, thousands. They're everywhere. Rex rushed to the screen. Tiny dots were appearing all around his fleet. Human ships, even smaller than the ones they'd seen before, were swarming out of nowhere. Impossible, Rex shouted. Our scans showed nothing. How did they hide so many ships? On the David, Wright smiled. When you build ships without crew spaces, without massive life support systems, without oversized reactors, you can make them very, very small indeed, and very hard to detect. The human ships moved like a swarm of angry bees. They darted between the massive Council vessels, their advanced AI systems coordinating attacks with perfect precision. Their small size made them nearly impossible to hit, while their advanced weapons struck with surgical accuracy. Sir, Rex's weapons officer called out. These ships, they're automated. There are no life signs aboard most of them. Rex's eyes widened in shock. The humans hadn't built small ships because they were primitive. They'd built them small because they didn't need crew spaces. Each tiny vessel was packed with computers and weapons, guided by AI systems far beyond Council technology. All ships, open fire, Rex ordered desperately, but it was like trying to swat flies with a sledgehammer. The human vessels were too small, too fast, too agile. Wright watched as his fleet executed their battle plan perfectly. Targeting data confirmed. Disable their primary systems. Remember, Earth wants prisoners and intact ships for study. The Council fleet tried to maintain formation, but it was useless. Their huge ships, designed to fight other huge ships, couldn't track the tiny human vessels. One by one, their mighty warships went dark. Admiral, Rex's bridge crew was panicking now. We've lost contact with half the fleet. The humans are inside our formation. Our weapons can't track them at close range. Rex stared in horror as his mighty armada was systematically torn apart by ships so small he could barely see them on his screens. All his mockery of human vessel size came back to haunt him. They weren't small because they were weak. They were small because they were far more advanced than anything the Council had. "Send the surrender signal," Rex whispered as his flagship's lights began to flicker. Tell them we surrender." In his small command ship, Wright nodded with satisfaction. "Signal received. Admiral Rex, welcome to the future of space warfare. Size isn't everything, but intelligence is." The battle was over. The Council's mighty fleet had fallen to the tiny ships they had mocked for so long. And this was just the beginning. The Council's emergency meeting chamber was in chaos. Representatives from 100 worlds shouted and argued as the latest battle reports scrolled across the giant screens. Dozens of their most powerful fleets had been defeated by the humans' tiny ships. "How?" the Council chairman demanded, pounding his fist on the table. "How are they doing this? Where did these humans get such advanced technology?" A small, quiet figure stepped forward. Professor Ben, the Council's head of military research, looked tired and afraid. "Sir," he said, his voice trembling, "our spies have finally discovered the truth about human technology. You might want to sit down for this." The chamber fell silent as Professor Ben connected his data pad to the main display. Images of human ships appeared, along with detailed scans of their internal systems. "We were wrong," he said. "Wrong about everything. These ships aren't primitive. They're centuries ahead of our technology." He zoomed in on one of the scans. "Look here. Each human vessel contains a quantum computer more advanced than anything we've ever built. They developed AI systems hundreds of years ago. While we were building bigger ships with bigger crews, they were perfecting automated combat systems." The Council members watched in stunned silence as more data appeared on screen. Professor Ben continued, "Their ships are small because they don't need crew quarters, massive life support systems, or huge engine rooms. Everything is miniaturized, automated, and perfectly designed." "But how did we miss this?" someone asked. "Our scans showed nothing special about their technology." Professor Ben laughed bitterly. "Because they wanted us to miss it. Those first ships they showed us, the ones we mocked, they were decoys, old models, deliberately displayed to make us underestimate them." On a human warship near the Council border, Captain Jack Parker watched his AI combat systems track another Council fleet trying to escape. His ship, barely larger than a Council shuttle, carried more computing power than their entire battle group. "Target locked," his AI reported. "Council vessels attempting to raise shields." Parker nodded. "Disable their engines. Standard capture protocol." The battle was over in minutes. The massive Council ships, still trying to fight with their outdated targeting systems and manual controls, never stood a chance against the automated precision of human weapons. Back in the Council chamber, Professor Ben was showing them even more disturbing news. "Look at this," he said, displaying a new image. "Their ships don't just fight better than ours. They're actually learning during combat. Each battle makes their AI systems smarter, more efficient. They're evolving faster than we can adapt." "How many ships do they have?" the chairman asked quietly. "We don't know," Ben replied. "Our best guess is tens of thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands, all hidden because they're too small for our sensors to detect, and each one more powerful than our largest battleship." The chamber erupted in panic. Hundreds of voices shouted at once, demanding solutions, demanding action, demanding someone fix this disaster. "There's more," Ben said, his voice cutting through the noise. "We found their research archives. Do you know why they developed AI ships in the first place?" He pulled up an ancient human document. 500 years ago, they realized something we never did. Space is big, really big. Building huge ships with massive crews was inefficient, so they went the opposite way, making ships smaller, smarter, and automated. In space, another Council world surrendered as a fleet of tiny human vessels appeared in their system. The pattern was always the same. The human ships would appear from nowhere, disable the defense fleet with surgical precision, and demand surrender. "We're receiving another transmission from Earth Command," Parker's communications officer reported. "Display it," Parker ordered. The message was simple: Phase 3 complete. All Council primary defense fleets neutralized. Proceed to Phase 4. Advance on Council capital. Parker looked at his tactical display, where hundreds of tiny dots showed his fellow human ships moving into position. The Council had laughed at their small ships, never understanding that size meant nothing when you had superior technology. "Send acknowledgement," he ordered. "The human fleet is moving out. Let's show the Council just how dangerous a tiny fleet can be when it's backed by 5 centuries of AI development." The war was entering its final phase, and the galaxy was about to learn why making fun of human technology was a very, very bad idea. The Council capital world of Prime shone like a jewel in space. Its orbital defenses were legendary: thousands of defense platforms, energy shields that could stop entire fleets, and the remains of Admiral Rex's last battle group. "They're coming," Rex said, watching the long-range sensors. His pride was gone now, replaced by fear. "The human fleet approaches." The chairman stood beside him in the command center, watching as tiny dots appeared on the edge of their scanner range. "How many?" "Too many to count," Rex replied. "And those are just the ones big enough for our sensors to detect." The human fleet, led by Admiral Wright's flagship, David, moved through space with perfect precision. Each small ship knew its exact place, guided by AI systems that could react faster than any organic crew. "All ships report ready," Wright's tactical officer announced. "Formation Goliath is prepared." Wright smiled. "Begin the sequence. Let's show them our final surprise." The Council defenders watched in confusion as the human fleet suddenly split into groups. Each cluster of tiny ships moved into strange patterns, like pieces of a puzzle coming together. "What are they doing?" Rex wondered aloud. Then his eyes widened in shock. No, impossible. The tiny human ships were transforming. Each group of vessels linked together, their energy fields merging, their systems connecting. Where there had been hundreds of small ships, now massive forms took shape. "By all the stars," the chairman whispered, "they're combining." Wright stood on his bridge, watching as Operation Goliath entered its final phase. "All units report status. Combat platform, Alpha online. Battle station Beta connected. Mega carrier Charlie fully formed." The tiny ships had merged into massive battle platforms, each one larger than the biggest Council vessel. But unlike the Council's big ships, these combined forms had all the advantages of their smaller components: advanced AI, perfect coordination, and weapons that could strike with surgical precision. "Impossible," Rex shouted. "They're ships. They're modular. Each small vessel is part of a larger whole." The human battle platforms moved toward Prime. Their combined shields shrugged off the orbital defenses like raindrops. Their merged weapon systems cut through the remaining Council ships with terrifying accuracy. "Now they understand," Wright said quietly. "Our ships aren't just small. They're pieces of something much bigger." The Council's remaining ships tried to fight back, but it was useless. The human battle platforms could split apart when attacked, becoming swarms of tiny ships again, then reform in new combinations. It was like fighting an enemy that could change its shape at will. "Admiral Rex," Wright's voice came over all channels. "Your defense fleet is disabled. Your orbital platforms are neutralized. Surrender, and no more lives need be lost." In the Council Command Center, Rex looked at the chairman. Both knew they had no choice. Their mighty defenses, the most powerful in known space, had fallen to ships they once mocked as tiny and weak. "We surrender," the chairman announced. Prime surrenders to the human fleet. As the Council capital world raised its white flag, Wright sent one final message to Earth Command. "Operation Goliath successful. The Council has surrendered. The war is over." The human ships separated again, returning to their smaller forms. They moved into holding patterns around Prime, their AI systems constantly monitoring for any signs of resistance. In his command center, Rex watched the small vessels with new understanding. "All this time," he said quietly, "we thought bigger meant better. We never imagined that small ships could join together." The chairman finished, "That they could be both tiny and massive. That humans had solved problems we never even thought about." On the David, Wright looked at the Council capital world through his view-screen. "Send word to Ambassador Walker. Tell him he can begin peace negotiations." The Council had learned their lesson. Size wasn't everything. In fact, as the humans had proved, sometimes being small was the biggest advantage of all. And as the sun set on Prime, thousands of tiny ships glittered in orbit, a reminder to everyone that mockery and arrogance could bring down even the mightiest empire. The age of giant ships was over. The era of human innovation had begun. 1 month after the surrender of Prime, the Council chamber looked very different. Where once proud alien leaders had laughed at humans, now they sat quietly as Ambassador Walker approached the podium. The same chamber where they had mocked human ships now hosted the peace negotiations. The chairman, his pride broken but his wisdom finally showing, stood to speak. "We are here to formally end the conflict between the Council and humanity. Ambassador Walker, your people have proven themselves beyond any doubt. The terms of peace are yours to set." Walker looked around the room, seeing faces that had once sneered at him. Now they watched with respect, and more than a little fear. Through the massive windows, hundreds of small human ships glittered in formation, a constant reminder of how wrong they had been. "The terms are simple," Walker said calmly. "Humanity claims the right to expand and trade freely throughout Council space. Our borders will be respected. Our technology will remain our own. And most importantly," he paused, looking directly at Admiral Rex, "no one will ever again judge a species by the size of their ships." Rex, standing in the corner with his head bowed, nodded slowly. The admiral who had started this war with his mockery had learned his lesson the hardest way possible. In return, Walker continued, "We offer peace and cooperation. Humanity will share some of our non-military technology to help improve life throughout Council space. We believe in progress, not punishment." The Council members muttered in surprise. They had expected harsh demands, maybe even the dismantling of their government. Instead, the humans were offering help. "There's more," Walker said. "We will help upgrade your civilian ships with some of our miniaturization technology. Your people deserve more efficient vessels, even if they choose to keep them large." In orbit above Prime, Admiral Wright watched from the David as the peace proceedings were broadcast. Captain Stone's ship floated nearby, along with hundreds of other small vessels that had won this war. "Quite a change from their first reaction to our ships," Stone commented over the comm. Wright smiled. "Amazing what a little demonstration can do to change people's minds." On the planet's surface, Professor Ben was already working with human engineers, studying their technology with permission for the first time. What he saw amazed him. "Your AI systems," he said to the human tech team. "They're not just advanced. They're beautiful. The way they work together, the way they learn and adapt. We were so busy building bigger ships, we never even thought about making them smarter." The lead human engineer smiled. "That's why we're sharing this knowledge now. Size isn't everything. Sometimes the smallest solution is the best one." Back in the Council chamber, Walker was finishing his speech. "Let this war be a lesson to all species. Never judge by appearances. Never assume bigger means better. And never, ever mock what you don't understand." The chairman stood again. "The Council accepts these terms. Let it be recorded that on this day, peace was established. And let it also be recorded that humanity taught us all a valuable lesson about pride and prejudice." As the Council members signed the peace treaty, Walker looked out at the stars. Human ships were already helping rebuild the damaged Council worlds. Their tiny vessels, once mocked, now brought aid and hope to the very people who had laughed at them. "Send word to Earth," Walker told his communications officer. "Tell them Operation Pocket Knife is complete. Peace has been achieved." Years later, the story would be told throughout the galaxy. How the mighty council had laughed at humanity's small ships. How they had learned, too late, that size meant nothing when faced with superior technology and innovation. How a war that started with mockery ended with understanding. And in the shipyards of Prime, where once only massive vessels were built, a new kind of ship took shape. Smaller, smarter, more efficient. The Council had learned from their mistake, and the galaxy was better for it. Admiral Rex, now retired, often visited these shipyards. He would watch the new vessels being built and remember his own foolish pride. Size isn't everything, he would tell young officers who asked about the war. The humans taught us that. Sometimes the smallest ships carry the biggest surprises. And in space, human and council ships now flew together. A constant reminder that wisdom often comes in unexpected packages, sometimes very small ones indeed.